Carl Roberts, I got another idea. Big baby to go to the UFC. So I put it to you, the UFC. So I put it to you that big baby, big belly, as I call him, Big Belly Miller. Big Belly Miller is out of boxing now for at least 2 years, minimum. And then that's the 2 years plus when's the 2 years going to start? I don't know. I suppose they'll start it retroactively. So, okay. So he's already been out of the ring for a year, 14 months, I think. More. Was it 14 months? Nah, because when was his fight before that? Okay, so he's been out of the ring for a year and a half already. And he's going to get, I predict he gets 2 years for this ban, minimum, 2 years. Back. He's not going to fight on the day his ban ends. So what? He's going to fight 6 months after his ban ends. Let's say 6 months. That's a safe buffer zone. That's a safe buffer zone to check the lay of the land. Okay. So really, big baby Jarrell Miller is going to be out of the ring for 4 years. By the time what I expect to be his ban of 2 years is expired. Okay. So that's 4 years out of the ring. So we have to look at options. We have to look at job opportunities. We're his career advisors. We're his career advisors. He's got to look. He's got to look. He's done kickboxing in the past. I don't know about the grappling. I don't know what his grappling is, but he's built for grappling. Big, heavy tree trunk at 6'4", 300 pounds at 6'4". Is the question has to be asked? The question I'm asking it is: big belly, big baby Jarrell Miller headed towards the UFC? And I'll tell you why this is very possible. And the reason it's possible is because the UFC, they love these big, heavy guys. The UFC, I say to you, Dana White would lap up big baby Miller. 6'4", 300-pound behemoth. And also what will be effectively an ex-boxer because he's banned now. I'll say to you, I put it to you and members of the jury that Big Belly Miller is headed over to Dana White as we speak, in talks, having meetings, because he ain't going to get back in the ring for another 2.5 years. Man's already lost out on $9 million. That's the money he would have made from the Joshua fight plus the 2 fights after the Joshua fight if he lost at 1.5 million apiece. Big baby Miller, Dana White, what say you?
Yeah, you know, the funny thing about it, like, you go to the UFC, it's like, bro, that's going back, man. It's too controlling. First off, that they have drug testing, probably vigorous, just as boxing. Another thing as well. Yeah, is another thing as well. The sponsorship, you can't get as much money because you only got one sponsor, which is Reebok. So you're not gonna make that endorsement. And really, do they even want you over there? You know what I mean? They're in flux now, trying to build champions. So they realize you're only coming over just to get a bit of money. The fans won't like you. You know what I mean? There's nothing for you. You know what I mean? Like boxing, he's made a good. If he goes over there, to me, it's like, you've gone into the B League. That's why I see it. The UFC is like the B League. You know what I mean? After maybe they've dealt with their best star over there. Ain't no one messing with them like that. You know what I'm saying? The UFC, they're guys who can't make it in boxing. To me, you know what I mean? It's not like it's proper traditional martial arts anyway. It's just like wrestling, grappling, and all they want to do is stand up like boxers anyway. They're like amateur boxers when they stand up. Now, I ain't disrespecting like man like John Jones and some of them guys who should be the #1 sport, but listen, end of the day, Big Baby Miller, he done formal kickboxing, but boxing you can make so much more money in boxing. Yeah. So much more boxing, and it's open wide. I mean, end of the day, like I said to you, if he messed up in boxing, he'll probably mess up in UFC, which is harder because Dana White is on you, and when Dana White starts gunning you and saying all kinds, that's not the thing you want. You know what I mean? First, another thing as well, are you bringing that money over? Are you coming over as like, oh yeah, you came over as like the bad boy of boxing? But they're gonna want to make an example of you, bro. They're gonna put you with Vadum and some of them dudes there to just grapple you, put you on the ground and brack up your legs like they did to James Toney. So I wouldn't go there. If I was you, I wouldn't go there either. So just take your lickings, take your medicine. Take your medicine and take your medicine and what you did. Try to come back, like I said to you, and try to redeem yourself, or not. We don't care about the fans. Either way, yeah. You know, God only can judge you as God in the end of the day. Like, you know what you did. And another thing is, Eddie Hearn's right. He didn't admit what it was about. That shows you his character already. Someone who does wrong and always makes excuses, it shows they're flawed. You know what I mean? End of the day, like, if you make your error, then you can admit it to the public and say, you know what, hands up, I did, and blah blah blah. But it just shows your lack of integrity as a human, which obviously I knew that when he said something about his mum. I looked at them Americans and I'm like, nah, mate, nah. That's where we're different. That's where we're different, you know. But he deserves what he's getting. Let's see how he comes back, and that's all I can say.
Very, 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 very different. Yeah, we don't like to get down that way. So looks like some people are saying, yay, Big Baby Miller to the UFC, but the UFC don't like to pay. Would they, however, if Miller is bringing over more eyeballs, and he definitely will, it would definitely cause an explosion. It would definitely be a media frenzy if Big Baby Miller went over to the UFC. So I think, yeah, I think the numbers would add up. I think, because Big Baby Miller going over there, the behemoth, 6'4", 300 pounds, it would cause a stir. And that stir would be converted into views, pay-per-view buys. Pay-per-view buys means money. And right about now, beggars can't be choosers. We've seen it many times through the history of boxing. Beggars cannot be choosers. I think you'd be able to clean up. I think you'd be able to take a $1 million, $1.5 million per fight over there in the UFC, and that would be in line with what he was getting if he'd have lost to Joshua. 2 fights at 1.5 million. I think he could. I think would generate sufficient interest over there, so they could do their maths and say, yeah, we can pay him 1.5. We can pay him 1.5. That'll keep his head above water. Right about now, he ain't earning diddly. 1.5 to Jarrell Miller right now. That would be like, I don't know. That would be like taking your dog to the pedigree chum factory and just chuck him in it. Chuck him in. Go on, Chuck. Go on. Come out 2 stone heavier the next day. Probably need an operation. So Jarrell Miller does generate, in my analysis, in my estimation, Jarrell Miller does generate sufficient interest, sufficient eyeballs to be a PPV attraction in the UFC. And Dana White right now is struggling for stars. He's struggling for stars. And so Big Belly Miller, I believe, would be a good fit over there. I think if they treat him a little bit differently, treat him with a little bit of respect, give him that 1.5 million per fight minimum, which I do think his introduction to the UFC would generate comfortably. Give him that 1.5 million paydays, and I think that would be enough for Jarrell Miller, who hasn't earned any money for a good 18 months now, and he's not going to be earning any money from boxing for another 2.5 years. What's that? That's 4 years in all. 4 years in all. If it's not the UFC, then there are other organizations over in Japan who could pay him. I don't know. I don't know if he's going to generate that money over there in Japan, because I don't know if he generates the views over there in Japan. But certainly in America, the big bad wolf in the black hat strolling into town. Yeah, I think he generates that money. No, he's not a UFC fighter. He's a boxer and a kickboxer. Well, previously a kickboxer. So it's a question of the ground game. Has he trained grappling? Has he trained grappling? I would not be surprised if he had, because a lot of the guys he's trained with over the years. I know for a fact I've seen him do stand-up sparring with MMA fighters. So I don't think Big Belly Miller is any stranger to MMA. However, getting that 300-pound frame up off the ground, time and time again, that could prove very fatiguing. How would he do? That's an entirely different question altogether. I don't know. I think he's going to struggle with the grappling. I don't know how much grappling he's had. Even if he's got a bit of grappling, he's still going to struggle with it. But I put it to you. I put it to you that I think the figures, the numbers would add up for Jarrell Big Baby Miller to start fighting over there in the UFC, because nothing ain't going on. Nothing going to happen for him in boxing for the next 2.5 years. And ladies and gentlemen, this is my